Hey, I get it, you've probably been scrolling through a ton of business desktop options, and the last thing you need is another just buy this thing pitch that leaves you wondering if you've made a mistake after the box arrives. Maybe you've already got a cramped office desk, a tight budget, and the pressure to upgrade from a sluggish old workstation before the next big project lands. You're wondering if a compact unit like the HP ProDesk 400G9 can actually keep up with demanding workloads without turning your workspace into a maze of cables and heat. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the scenario that most of us face: a small to medium business or a home office that needs a reliable machine for everything from video calls and spreadsheet crunching to occasional 3D rendering or data analysis. The ProDesk 400G9 lands in that sweet spot because it squeezes a 14th Gen Intel Core i7-14700 into a small form factor chassis. That chip brings 20 cores and 28 threads, which means you can have Chrome tabs, Outlook, a Photoshop session, and a background backup process all humming along without the dreaded not responding dialogue. In the real world, I've seen colleagues run simultaneous Teams meetings while pulling large Excel models, and the system stayed responsive, something older business PCs would have struggled with. Now, the memory and storage combo is another practical win. Out of the box you get 32 GB of DDR5 RAM, which is double what you'd find on most entry-level business desktops. That amount of high-speed memory really shines when you're dealing with large datasets or multitasking across several heavy applications. Pair that with a 512 GB PCIe SSD for the OS and primary apps, and you get lightning-fast boot times and snappy program launches. The added 1 TB HDD serves as a decent cold storage spot for archived files, so you don't have to constantly prune your drive. In everyday use, that means you can open a 5-minute video file, edit it, and still have enough headroom to run a virtual machine for testing without watching the hard drive spin up like a dying hamster wheel. One thing that often trips people up with SFF, small form factor, desktops is expandability. The ProDesk 400's chassis is intentionally tight to save desk space, which is great if you're working at a shared desk or a compact cubicle. However, that also means you'll have limited room for future upgrades. Adding a second GPU or swapping the HDD for a larger SSD will be tricky, and you might need to open the case in a well-lit area with a magnetic screwdriver, something that's not as straightforward as pulling out a tower. If you anticipate needing serious graphics horsepower down the line, say for intensive video rendering or CAD work, this isn't the machine to future-proof for that scenario. It's more of a right-now solution. Connectivity is another area where the ProDesk earns points. It comes with both HDMI and DisplayPort outputs that support dual 4K monitors at 60 Hz. In a typical office setup, that translates to a clean, crisp dual-screen environment without needing an extra adapter or dock. I've seen it paired with a 27-inch 4K monitor for a design team and a 24-inch 4K for a finance analyst, both reporting crisp text and stable color reproduction. The built-in USB-C port is a nice touch for newer laptops or peripherals, letting you charge devices or connect a fast external SSD without hunting for an extra cable. And of course, the RJ45 Ethernet port gives you a wired network connection that's more reliable than Wi-Fi for large file transfers, which matters when you're moving a gigabit-plus dataset across the office. Speaking of Wi-Fi, the unit includes Wi-Fi 6, so if you're in a modern office with a compatible router, you'll get better throughput and lower latency than older Wi-Fi standards. In my own testing, streaming a 1080p video while running a Teams call didn't cause any hiccups, which is reassuring for those who can't always rely on Ethernet. However, the antenna is tucked inside the case, so you'll want to keep the desktop a few inches away from large metal objects to avoid signal attenuation. Now, who should actually consider buying this machine? If you're a small business owner, a remote worker, or an IT manager looking to equip a handful of desks with a solid, low-maintenance workstation, the ProDesk 400G9 ticks the boxes. Its compact size means it won't dominate the office floor, and the pre-installed Windows 11 Pro gives you access to business-grade security features like BitLocker and Remote Desktop without extra licensing. The price point, while not bargain basement cheap, reflects the high core count CPU and DDR5 memory, so you're essentially paying for a future-ready CPU now, even if the chassis limits later upgrades. On the flip side, you might want to skip this if your primary workload revolves around heavy 3D rendering, high-end gaming, or machine learning tasks that lean heavily on GPU performance. The SFF design doesn't accommodate a large graphics card, and while the i7-14700 is a beast on the CPU side, you'll quickly feel the bottleneck without a dedicated GPU. Also, if you're a DIY